Hello everyone and welcome back to She Stitchin'. This is Melanie. That is the first time I've been able to say welcome back, and I know that I'm speaking the truth because I doubt that most people would be watching this video unless they've already done one of the patterns for the crochet along. So today we're going to be talking about how to put the border on the squares that go on all of the beautiful stitches that we've learned so far this year. So I brought out a couple of examples just to have them in the background as we work. Today I'm going to be putting the border on our cluster V stitches. This is the last square that I have left to put the borders on. So as you can see in the background, you can use basically whatever color you want to put the border on. It's all up to the vision that you have for your blanket. So here you can see on the cluster spike stitches, I used a border that was one of the colors in there. On the dragonfly switch, I just used the darker teal and the lighter teal, which the pale green and the light sage. Or like on the Jacob's ladder here, you can use one of the colors from inside. But it's really up to you. Today I'm going to be using the soft gray, and of course all of our blankets, or my blanket so far, was made out of this ginormous Caron 1 pound. And I had 6 of these when we started out this project together. And for the pale gray, or the soft gray, sorry, this is all that I have left of that humongous pound of yarn. This is all that I have left. And I do have more of the other colors, but apparently I liked adding the soft gray into the patterns the most. So what I recommend you having is a few stitch markers for today. So I have some stitch markers that came with a crochet hook kit here, which I can put the link to the kit that I got. It was this really cool bag filled with tons of goodies. I'll put the link to that in the description. It was from Amazon. So you'll need that, and then you'll also need a size 4 hook, or not a size 4, a 4mm hook, and that's the US size G. Or 6, and it doesn't matter what size you used on the square itself. All of the squares, or the blocks, however you want to call them, they're all going to have the size 4 hooks. So for example, what I mean by that is the cluster spike stitch, the popcorn stitch, and Jacob's ladder, they all used 3.5 hook when you were working on them. The dragonfly and the textured waves used a much larger hook. I think a 5.5 for the dragonfly. I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head. But irregardless of the type of hook you used for the square, you're going to be using the size 4mm hook for the border. So each of our squares, I did a lot of math starting this out on these patterns to get you to have 30 stitches along the bottom. And most of the stitches have 30 stitches also on the top, although a few of them do have 31, like the V stitch and things like that. So you'll want to make sure that you'll have 30 stitches in the top, or you might need to do some increases or decreases. So just before you get started, go ahead and count that out. Now here I have placed stitch markers in the corners, and I double counted to make sure that I had 30 stitches on that top row. And the same thing on the bottom row. And then the way that the pattern is going to work out to get all of these squares to be the same is we're actually going to count as if each side is going to end up with 32 stitches. So you can see here, this is the spider stitch. We end up here with 3 single crochets going into each corner. So that's where it's going to be on all of the patterns. See, we're going to have 3 single crochets going into each corner. The top, bottom, up, and down. So what you're going to have is you're going to have 30 stitches across, and then we're going to count 1 stitch in the corner, so that would be your 30th, and then we're going to count that middle one of the 3 as your 31st, and then your middle one of the 3 as your 32nd. So that's how we end up with 32 on each side. The reason why we put those 3 stitches in the corner is just to make sure that we get a nice 90-degree angle there, so that, there's, the right shape. They're not circles or something on the edge. And also to make sure that the fabric is going to still lay straight after we've got that border on. Okay, so what we're going to do is start out with a slip knot. And then we're just going to do some standing single crochets to get it started. So let me explain to you how to do those two things. So first, I might have showed this in a couple other videos, but I just want to make sure I got it for everybody. So I'm going to be holding my yarn in between my thumb and my ring finger and my pointer finger and my middle finger. And then we're just going to push the yarn back like this so it looks like we have a yarn over. We're going to go over that and then under the bottom. And then I'm going to grab that top yarn and bring it back through. And then most of the time I shift how I'm holding this here. And then I pull that top yarn through the bottom yarn. And that's how I like to do my slip knot, but however you do it is okay. One thing I forgot to mention is right now I'm using my Susan Bates inline hook. So that just means it's shaped a little bit different than the hooks that I grew up using or normally use. So here I have my boye 6mm. You can see there's a pretty big difference in the shape of the point on the end and the neck and this part here. It's like kind of more of a fierce hook. Sometimes when we're going to be going into the sides of these stitches, because we're going to be having to go into the sides here, it's easier for me if I'm using an inline hook just because it's a little bit more stabby. So if you have one, this might be a great time to use it. For the standing single crochet, we're going to make sure we already got that slip knot on, and then you're just going to insert anywhere. Now you can start at any point of your square to do this. So insert your hook through both loops on the top there, yarn over and pull it through. So then you've got 2 loops on and yarn over, pull through 2. So that's that normal single crochet. I'm using the American terms. And that's how we put the edge on there. Okay, so that's how we get our first stitch on, and there's no crazy knots or anything. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and keep stitching along until we reach that corner. You can see here I've got that brown stitch marker there for us. Now in the background you might be able to hear my kids watching a movie. And if you can, and you know what movie it is, comment in the comments section down below what movie it is and you get extra points. Alright, so here I am on that stitch marker. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this out so that I can get those stitches in there with a consistent tension. All right, so we've got 1 stitch in that spot, and we're going to go in there 2 more times. 2 stitches in there, and it starts to turn, and then 3 stitches in there, and there we go. There's our 90-degree turn. Okay, so now let's talk about how I placed all the other stitch markers. So this green one you can see here is dead center in the piece. So by the time I get there, I'm going to want to make sure, as I said before, we're going to have 32 stitches all the way across. Half of 32 is 16. So I'm going to want to make sure that I have all 16 stitches in before I get there so that the stitches are balanced. And then I also placed stitch markers at the quarter marks. So if you fold the piece in half, you can see there, or you fold the end to the half and then you can see the middle there. Now this stitch worked out good so that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. So it'll be a little bit easier than some of the others because we're going to want to have, it's an easier way to divide it up. We're going to want to have 3 single crochets in the side of each of the double crochets. All right. So finding out the spot to go is always going to be a little bit tricky. So far we've got 2. And then we're just going to go in here. And I always try to go through 2 pieces of yarn just to make sure that it's secure. 1. And then we're just going to go 1, 2, 3. This is the most tedious part of this because you're going to have to just be like, okay, how many do I have? Where can I stab it out so that it'll be good? 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have 4 more stitches that I need to get in before I get to that red spot. There's a good spot. And sometimes the stitches will have good places to naturally place your hook. and sometimes they don't, and you just have to stab it through, and that's why I recommend the inline hook. All right, so what I was doing as I was going is when I was doing all the other squares, this is my last square to put the edge on. When I was putting the edges on, I always went and put one in here on that middle single crochet to make sure that I was counting right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I want 2 more. So I'm going to go here, and this is a spot that I commonly place my hook in. I grab one yarn from here and one yarn from the other side. And that was nice and secure. So that's stitch 7. And then I'm going to go ahead and put stitch 8 right in where that stitch marker is. So I'll take that out so the tension stays good. Place that in there. All right. So now we've got 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're going to want to get 8 in here before we get to that 16 point. So the sides are a little bit hard to do. And they definitely require, you know, paying good attention to what's going on. Oops. Oops. Double loops, I guess. All right, so I will go ahead and forge down this piece. And here's a good spot. Like I said, I normally get that last bottom of the stitch there like that. All right, and you can kind of see here the way this broke up. I get 3 single crochets on each of those double crochet stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Got to fit 4 more in there, so I'll fit 3 on this stitch and then 1 right at that spot. So 1, 2, 3, and then put the 4th one in here. And this also, I like to take this one out, that stitch marker out, and then I put it back in here so that I don't have to count to 32 again. So as you go, you're going to be doing this, how many squares did we do? 48 times. So you'll definitely develop the best way for you to do it. Just don't be afraid to use stitch markers. And you can also just grab like another piece of yarn. Like a contrasting color is always nice. And just pull it through. And that's also a great way to mark your work if you're having trouble with that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward here and meet you at the end. Well, that was fun. Did you guys know I could crochet that fast? Let me know what you think about including that time lapse, if I should do it or not. Kind of fun. All right, so I put 2 stitches in the quarter here, so we're going to end up with a 3rd one. And then that will end up, you can see at the end of that time lapse, I did count. So make sure you count, because when you go to put the border in later, the squares won't match up. All right, and then, yay, we're back on the bottom. Now, if you crochet like I do into the back loops, the bottom is going to be super easy because it looks normal. So just go across and do your 30 stitches, plus the corners, so 32. Alright, so I just finished up the bottom and now I'm heading back up the other side. So I went ahead and I placed those stitch markers again and we put 3 in the corner. If you count from corner to corner, it'll be 32. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 31 and 32 for the corner piece. Just wanted to count that so that you guys know how I'm counting, just to make sure y'all understand. So I'm going to go ahead and go up the side and then I'll finish up the top and I'll come and just show you how to do the slip stitch at the end. Alright, I've finished up the whole border and there's a new movie ending for my kids, so if you can hear it, tell me what it is. All right, so let's end this with a slip stitch. So I finished all the way up. I went ahead and counted, and I have the right number all the way across. And then I'm just going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull it through both. Boom. There we go. And then I will find my yarn trimmer. Ooh, I get to use my fancy clover yarn trimmer. And there we go. Pull that through. There we go. I have finished my last one. Now, normally what I like to do at the end here is I'll grab the ends and then, oh, I did that off. Sorry, I dropped off camera there. So what I do is I'll pull these apart from each other so that they tighten up. But you also don't want to make it so that there's going to need to be an extra stitch. So make sure that when you come back to put that stitch in there for when we do the border that, there's not too much space taken up. Now we're going to grab the tapestry needle and, let's see if I can get this on camera. We're just going to weave in the end. So this long piece that I'm trying to feed through now came from this direction. So what I'm going to do, since I'm so close to the end, I'm going to stick it under here. And this is where I like to normally weave in my ends, is I stick the tapestry needle on top of the blue, but in between the legs here on the single crochets. Take that across and then shoot it back. And the more times that you're able to make twists and turns in there is better for the work, so that those ends don't work out later. And then sometimes too, I'll go through the middle of the yarn on the turns, just to make sure that, it's not going to come undone. And I'll go ahead and continue past the knot here. So I'll do that with both sides, and then I don't need to do that on camera with y'all, but that's what I'll do. So there we go. That is my last block for the border. So what you can expect coming up for my next couple of videos, I will be finishing off our last stitch. Now, I did make some modifications to this. I have been showing off this kind of before. As you can see right here, it kind of starts with these. I'm reworking the pattern. This is what I want to explain. So I'm reworking the pattern so that the puff stitches will start on the first row, and we won't have this kind of empty cave looking thing right here. So I'm reworking the pattern. Let me show you how amazing it looks in two colors. I'm reworking the pattern so that it starts with the puff stitches at the bottom. So it's taking me a little bit longer, but I should have this one coming out. I'll finish off this piece, and then I'll get going with you. So we'll still have our finale video coming up, and then I will also be making a video on how to put the edge on the box stitch, because the box stitch, let me see, is a little bit weird to put the edge on just because it's got like that 3D effect. So I'll be doing that border. I'll finish off a sample piece and I'll do that border with you if you guys need it. So comment down below if you knew what videos my kids were watching during this movie. I'm sorry they were so loud. It's been a crazy more than a year we've been in lockdown here. I live in Los Angeles, so the coronavirus cases are still kind of high, and we try to stay at home as much as possible. So my kids are going a little bit crazy, so that's one of the reasons why it's been so hard for me to film with my husband's work schedule and everything going on. So, that's my little apology. So I'm sorry it's taking me so long, but we will be wrapping this up soon. I'm very excited to see how this two color turns out. So I'll see you in a few days. Hopefully I'll have this up. And if anybody asks where I am, just tell them she's stitching. See you guys later.